Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I have a very special guest today. She is a data scientist, a computer programmer, a real estate investor, a mom, and many other things. I'm just so excited to dig into her story because when I came across her profile, I thought it was just such a different angle that we haven't covered on the podcast yet. So, Yamundow Camara, welcome to the Dreamers Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I stumbled upon your story while I think I was checking out the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast, and I was drawn to it because, well, first of all, you talked about the fact that you were an immigrant, and I'm an immigrant as well, and you were talking about building wealth through real estate, but you also shared that you hadn't been in the US for that long. So I'll let you tell us, how long have you been here, and how many doors do you have?
Yes, sure. I'm excited to dig in. Thank you so much for having me on this platform. I'm honored to be here. Yes, I came to the US in 2016 and I'm a data scientist. I work for the CDC as a data scientist and I do computer programming for LabCorp. It's a pharmaceutical company in the US here. And I do real estate on the side. I came to the US in 2016, started investing in 2021. I'm at 28 doors. I do short-term rentals. I also buy houses, fix them up, and rent them on normal tenants and Section 8.
All right, so let's take a pause here. She came to the US in 2016, so it's been 5 years. In 5 years, you have acquired 28 doors, and actually it's 29 because you just shared before I hit record that you recently purchased another property. Can you share more about that?
Yes. So I came to the US in 2016, but I started investing in 2020. So I've only been investing 2 years, exactly 2 years. I started April 2020 during COVID time. Yes, I have 28 doors. And the recent property that I just added, probably 29 doors, or you could call it 31 doors, because it's a 5 bedroom, possible 6 bedroom that has a carriage house at the back. A carriage house is like a extra ADU unit. So I converted that carriage house into a duplex. So like 2 units at the back and the main house. So with that, because I do short-term rentals and I have travel nurses booked directly to me through Furnace Finder, I got an inquiry from a movie crew that's shooting an Apple series, and the team do not want to stay at the Hilton Hotel for another 8 months. So they're looking for a whole house. So I was like, okay, I was only gonna furnish the duplex because it's easier that way, right? And then I was like, furnish the main house. I wasn't even ready. They were like, we need the main house. We don't care what you put in as long as the kitchen is stocked with everything that we need. And we just need a nice couch and a nice TV and beds and mattress. That's all. I was like, okay, that's easy. Send in your security deposit. Here's the contract. They're sending the money, everything all the way. I went on Amazon, bought everything that they need, and they moved in a few days later. So I ended up renting it per room for $2,000 for the 5 bedroom. And then the duplex outside the carriage house, I rented it for travel nurses for $2,000 per unit as well, because they're 1 bedroom as well. So one house, $14,000 a month.
$14,000 a month. And how much is the mortgage?
The mortgage is, I think it's 2,000. I'm not sure. At that point, I didn't care at all. I think all in is about $2,000. Yeah, it's about 2,000.
So you're cash flowing like 9,000.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. If it's 2,000, you're cash flowing 12,000 a month.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We definitely need to dig in. All right. So you mentioned, right, that you moved to the US in 2016. What brought you here? Tell me all of that good stuff about all of that.
So I grew up in Africa. I grew up without parents. So my sister and my aunties raised me. I was only good at school. I wasn't good at anything else, like walking, all that stuff, like cooking, all of that. I wasn't good at that. I was good at school. So I stick with school. I ended up working my way all the way, scholarship all the way to university level. So when I graduated in my last semester in university, because I was doing computer science and mathematics, everybody in my class literally is a boy. So I was like, this is weird. I mean, everywhere, like women minority in computer science or like the science fields. But I was like, okay, maybe I should start doing something because I get to this. Because I did start with some girls, but they ended up dropping out because the fields of people look at it as a male dominated field. And they're like, oh, what are you doing in this class? Or what are you doing in this field? So in my last semester, I started a nonprofit organization called Girls in ITC. So basically what I do is the organization, we go around different regions, different villages, and we It teaches girls, high school girls, basic IT skills like how to create a calculator, how to program, little things like that, just basic IT literate. So it kind of took off. And there's this fellowship called Mandela Washington Fellowship. It's a fellowship that was started by President Obama, tribute to Mandela, President Mandela, may his soul rest in peace. So basically the program is called YALI, Fellowship for Young African Leaders, basically for African youths that are doing something in their community. So I got selected out of 40,000 applicants to come to the US. So I was placed at Northwestern University, and then I was later flown to DC to meet President Obama. And so after the fellowship, I've been already like looking it towards applying for my master's degree, and I've been applying to schools, and I'll get partial scholarship because I'm from a very poor background. I couldn't afford the rest. So I needed a full scholarship. So I was like, let me start looking in the US. And this is before I came for the fellowship. I've already been applying to schools. So around the time that I got the fellowship is the same time that I got the full master's scholarship as well. So once I finished the Northwestern one, I just transitioned to University of Illinois, Chicago. So it was like, oh, Chicago again. Okay. So that's how I studied computer science, mathematics, master's in computer science, graduated, and then moved to Georgia to work for the CDC as a data scientist.
So you said a lot right now, and probably have to dig in some more. But first of all, I want to know, like, how old are you?
I'm 33.
All right, because you seem to have, done a lot of things already. Okay, so you're 33 years old. You moved to the US a few years ago. You went to college, your master's degree, and then you got another degree. And I remember on the podcast, on the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast, you shared that you were the first person in your family to graduate from college. And now you moved to the US, and it only takes you a few years to start investing in real estate and all those things. The reason why I want to talk about that is because for most immigrants, the idea is what? You move here, you get a stable job, and that's what you do. So how do you, in your 20s, move here and think within a few years, I'm going to get into real estate? But actually, I'm not just going to get into real estate. I'm going to get a bunch of doors. I'm going to do that when I have my full-time job. Like, where do you get all of that from?
Yeah. So I got it from growing up, I guess. So growing up in people's houses, like I said, I grew up without my parents. So my sister had to get married to raise me. So I had to be raised in my sister's husband's family house. And in Africa, we live in extended houses. So it's always that stigma of, oh, I know you don't belong because everybody here has the same last name, right? It's extended family, cousins and aunties and uncles and bunch of kids, but you always know you didn't belong. So it was a lot of childhood story there that I don't want to dig in. But yeah, knowing that I don't belong, knowing that, oh, I would love to have a place like this person. I would love to have, because that's like always the secondary one, because you live in people's houses as well. So I always knew, and I knew my dad didn't have, and he ended up passing away when I was 11. So I would always go back, and sometimes like I would get threatened, like, oh, we're going to return you to your dad's house. So kind of like, oh, we're going to return you to a poor house, basically. Even though where I live wasn't like, but there's poor and there's poor. So it was like, oh, I don't want to go live there. So I always like wondered, I want to have a house. I can't, like just a child dreaming about having a nice house or living with your parents, like that kind of dream. So when you grow up as an orphan, there's always this gap of that love that you always want to look for. Like if you're missing something like a house or feel like you don't belong in a house, you always was like, when I grow up, I'm going to buy a house. When I grow up, I'm going to do this. So that's always been in me. And then after I graduated from college, before I graduated, I got an internship in one of the biggest software developing companies. They work on small and medium-sized enterprises. So they build like HR systems for them, asset management, all that stuff. So I ended up working there as an intern. Then after I graduated, I got hired full-time. So I probably worked there for like 4 or 5 years, and working there knowing that, oh my God, my boss wasn't that older than me, maybe 10, 15, but I'm looking at it as, I like dreaming, right? I'm like, what if I could also do this? Look at this guy. He started this business. He's also from here, even though he went outside, studied, and came back. But he's built a business for himself, have us working there. And I've always been inspired by that. And we work for hours and hours because you have to be lucky to get a job there, right? So we work hard to get that position that I was at. So I always like, okay, I don't want to work 9 to 5 because I keep working and this guy keep getting richer. We get winning projects, government projects, and my salary is not changing. But our company keep expanding. I'm like, I want something like this for myself. So I always knew I don't want to do like a 9 to 5 forever. And if I do, I'm going to use it to build myself. Like I'm not going to stick to it forever and be satisfied because I used to be paid $16,000. That's like less than $500. And back home, that's a lot of money. It was like, oh my God, we're so proud of you. You went to college, you have this good job, you work for this big company here. That wasn't enough because I know how much value I was putting into the company, right? How much the company was getting because we're winning $1 million projects from the government and building all this system for school management and all of that. And I'm like working so hard. Sometimes we close at 12 midnight just to get the deadlines. And I'm like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be the one here working to make somebody rich. So I always had that zeal that, okay, I don't want to work. I already have experienced that 9 to 5 life before I came to the US. So I knew it has to change. And because I'm the only one who's fortunate enough to make it this far in my family, everybody's relying on me. So I have to make it. A 9 to 5 wasn't going to cut it. Sending $500 or $200 every month, whereas I'm not saving. So it's basically like hand to mouth. It's not going to cut it. And I've always been an entrepreneur. Even back then, even though I was a software engineer, I was coding, doing all that stuff. My friend and I started a little business where I never shared this to anyone in a podcast. What we do is we sew African outfits and we sell it to people. They will come to our office downstairs during their meeting and we take them to one of the rooms downstairs and I'll just measure them and everything and take their showing. Then I'll go to the tailor and then we take it to the tailor, sew it, and then we charge and take the difference. And it was fun. It was really nice.
I'm sure that the extra income didn't hurt.
Yeah, no, it didn't hurt.
Yeah, so you said, a bunch of things. Every answer that you give me, you're taking me in so many different directions. I actually need to take a step back. So you grew up in the Gambia with your sister and her husband and his extended family. Yeah. And you were bright enough to get a scholarship to move to the US. You got a good job after that. And one thing that some of the people who are watching or listening might not know is that when you move to the US as a student, you don't just automatically get work permit like that. You get a temporary work permit that's called an OPT. And then after that, you're lucky enough if a company wants to sponsor you so that eventually you can stay here long term. But the reason why I'm mentioning that is that when you first started investing, you were still on your OPT.
Yes, I still work. So OPT basically being optional practical training. So the US government will give you that. It takes from 1 year to 2 years, and 1 year and you can extend to 2 years. Basically what that means is, okay, here is this document. We're giving you these starters for you to go and work with. It's an internship opportunity for you to go and work with US companies, hoping that they would hire you after the 1 year. But then if they don't, you have an extended 1 year for you to continue. If you don't, then you're going to leave the US. So sometimes you do it optional. You work for people for free, hoping that they will take you and then sponsor your visa. And sometimes you don't get it.
And so the reason why I just want to keep talking about this is because, someone listening also might be in that same situation, right? And not even thinking about investing. So just hearing you, it makes it real and possible. Tell me about your real estate investing strategy.
I started investing in 2020 during COVID. I always knew I wanted to invest in real estate. Like from childhood, I already knew and I've been inspired. And I kept reading about it when I came here. There were so many resources. I'm a reader. I like reading. I was a loner the whole time. So back home, I would go to any library, nearby school library, and just take books and read them just because I want to read, not just to escape, but it's not like I want to read them for fun. So I would read books and I'll come across the different books about wealth and stuff and I'll read them. But when I came, I already had a bunch of knowledge about stuff that I didn't even need because I just randomly read stuff. But when I was looking for a job, I knew that eventually when I get a job, I'm going to start investing, right? So what I did was put myself in places where I can access these resources, free networking events, free YouTube, like YouTube University. Go and just put real estate. You see a lot of people talking about what they do, how they achieve. So I've met a lot of people through like networking events that are free, and I'll just go there, talk to a bunch of people. I'll go on YouTube and check Bigger Pocket podcasts, join those and listen to people, listen to different people. So I already have been doing my research before I even started investing. So before I even got a job. So what I did was read these books that people are suggesting. So I did not reinvent the wheel or anything. I just repeat what people are doing. So 2019, I got a job with the CDC and I'm already in Georgia. I moved to Georgia. I got a job with CDC. And 3 months into the job, I was like, I think it's time now. I've saved 10,000. Like I've never heard that kind of money. I'm so excited. So in all my research, I always hear people say, oh, contact the local banks, contact credit unions, your local banks and all of that, right? So I did exactly that. So me being in Illinois, because that's the only state I know, because I've just moved to Georgia then. So it's like, okay, I cannot afford houses in Georgia. Let me go back and look at where I used to live and close by there. So I kept going. Every city by where I lived was higher. I kept going all the way to the little cities, right? The smaller cities. And then I was like, okay, I think I can afford this area. So I did call the banks and I tell them I want to invest in real estate. What do I need to do? Some of them are like, first of all, your papers are not all there, even though you're allowed to work with your OPT, whatever. And some of them would tell me your credit score. So it's a bunch of reasons. And I got rejected. But there was just one bank that was there to listen to me. And they were like, you know what? If you really want to do it, these are the things you don't qualify, but these are the things that you can do. You can go get Capital One. I didn't have a credit card. I didn't know what that was. My scholarship at the university was a work scholarship. I do data analysis for the university and they waive my tuition fee and they give me $1,000 stipend. So with the stipend, I pay my room fees and all the little things and insurance and all that. So I'm left with like $100, go to Walmart, buy groceries. That's it, repeat for the whole 2 years. So I never knew anything about credit cards or how important it is to someone here in the US, especially. So I didn't have, they were like, okay, so the bank, so I guess they go get a credit card, Capital One, at least get two. You work for CDC now, go join the credit union and build your credit, maybe get a secure card. I didn't even get a credit card when I applied for CDC. They asked me to do a secure credit card, put $300 down and then pay it off, use it and pay it off until 6 months. So I did all of that the bank suggested. I was like, you know what? I can't wait this long. I went ahead and did it. So I called them back and I said, I did everything you guys said, but I can't wait. So what I did was I went and looked for a property. I didn't stop. I didn't let that discourage me. I kept looking for properties and I just analyzed them just for fun, just analyze. So I saw this property that was like 52, it was a triplex, 52,000. The seller was going through a divorce and they wanted to sell. They're desperate to sell. And it needed work, but I didn't know that at the beginning. They told me on paper that it's going to cash flow $2,000 because the rent are so and so and so. They gave me the rent roll. They gave me everything. So I was like, presented to the bank. I was like, these are the numbers. And I have 10,000 saved up right now. No matter what, I could put 8,000 down on closing costs and everything, 10 grand. I think this will work. They were like, okay, send all the documents. They were like, okay, we'll call you back. And then they were like, they called me back and said, okay, we'll take a chance on you. And they did. And the rest is history. So that's how I started. I later found out so many issues were wrong with the house, but I ended up going through. It taught me everything that mostly 90% of the things that could be wrong in a deal, property. But me going through that process, I learned a lot and it's brought me to where I am right now. Now the property costs for close to $2,000 a month every month and it's on Section 8. And it's appraised for higher.
Do you mind sharing which bank you ended up going with for that first property?
Yeah. Yes, it's called Illinois National Bank. It's in Illinois.
So how many banks or credit unions did you have to call and go to be able to get that one person or one bank to take a chance on?
I think I did made a list of all the banks in Illinois. I think I Googled all banks there, all local banks.
And you called?
Yeah, I went through all of those banks. Yep, I did.
I think this is important, right? Because a lot of times people will try, they're going to try a few, they're going to hear a few no's, and then they're just going to be done, right? And what happened here is that you just kept going until finally you got one bank. That's all you needed. You just needed that one bank to take a chance on you. And here we are 2 years later. I don't even know how many doors you have, right? 29 plus doors. You said something earlier too. I think it's important that we touch on it because it's a very important part of the immigrant experience. You said that you needed to make more money because people rely on you. Whatever your income was, if you had to send however much every month, then you wouldn't have much to save and invest in your future. For anyone listening who might be in the situation where, they're helping take care of some people, they're sending money back home, I think the solution that you came up with is the best one. You have to earn more, right? Find a way to increase your income, increase your cash flow so that you wouldn't just help others and not be able to build wealth for yourself. I think that's very important. And you said that you were doing Section 8 for the most part. Okay, so what attracted you to investing in properties? Do you turn them into Section 8 or are they already Section 8 properties when you buy them?
So when I buy them, they're not Section 8. So the beginning, I wanted to show the bank that I guarantee money. So the banks wants to see that the money is guaranteed, right? I'm not going to be struggled because it's out of state and this is my first time. For me to prove to them that, okay, I can really do this out of state, I was like, let me go with Section 8 route because that's guaranteed money. So no matter what, at the end of the day, because I opened an account with them, they will see the money coming in every month. They will see the 2,000 coming in, and it's direct deposit, and it's the first of the month, and the government never fails you when it comes to paying you, right? So that's why I went the Section 8 route. But also because it was during COVID. Remember when I started, it was during COVID, right? And a lot of people were not paying rent. So it didn't make sense for me to find someone and they would stay there and I would not be able to evict them. So going the Section 8 route was great for me.
That's brilliant. And there's a lot of misconceptions about Section 8, right? So it's great to hear that you're doing it and that you're basically highlighting the fact that it's guaranteed money because, again, during COVID, a lot of people didn't pay rent, right? So the thing with Section 8 is that you do have that guaranteed income coming in. How about like troubles with people who are renting your properties? Because I think there's also a misconception about that.
I never have any issues. Actually, it's not, the stigma is saying, oh, the Section 8 tenants are bad, they're going to destroy your house. It's the person, it's not the program. Does that make sense? Because when I give out a product, when I fix a house, I fix it like I could live in this house. I'm not fixing it thinking, oh, it's Section 8, they're going to trash it. I put vinyl flooring, I do nice paint, I make sure the appliances are working, everything is working, everything looks good. Like I would literally stay in my units, right? In my houses. If you fix a house just because it's Section 8, you put the cheapest carpet, cheapest, it's like, oh, it's Section 8. If you give somebody a trashy product, they will treat it as trash. But if you make it look good, and for me, when I'm looking for properties, I look for properties that are desirable. So I buy the worst house in the best neighborhood. So those people will be happy because they don't want to lose that because their kids are going to those schools. So once I bring in, let's say, a single mom that has 4 kids, right, between the age 4 or 5, because I like to be in that range because I know that no mother wants to put their child in school and then take them out and move again to another school, right? So when you have a mom or a single or a family that are younger, they stay longer. And because the school district is good, they will stay and they will take care of the place. And because a lot of landlords are not fixing their houses to meet that level, my competition is low. Because when I fix a house, when I list a house, I literally get 200 applications because the difference between how I fix mine and my competitors is high. So everyone's like asking me. And when I list a property, I never take it down, even if it's occupied. So I want people, because I'm always fixing houses. So I want people to always inquire, say, oh, this one is booked, but I do have, this one is already taken, but I do have one that's coming up in 2 weeks. So I get the application, I get my tenants in, because the Section 8 process takes a while. So by the time the house is done, they sometimes drive by to look at the house while my contractors are there. So that's how I do it.
So obviously you have 2 jobs and you're a real estate investor. Tell me about your team. Like, how are you able to make it all work?
So it's all about building team. I respect people. And I always get that respect back from people. I treat people the same. I never had anything, now I'm a millionaire. Before I wasn't, I have nothing. So I know how it feels to not have anything or anybody or say, oh, am I mom this or something, have someone to fall back to. I never had that. So I always treat people, whether you are my cleaner or you're my contractor or you're the lender of the bank, you're the same to me. Like I don't treat people differently. So I treat people with respect and I always get that back. And I'm so grateful to God. He always put good people my way. So my team basically now, so before when I fix a house, I would go every 2 weeks and check it out. Now I don't. Like I trust my team so much. My team uses my credit card to purchase material. When I say that, people are like, are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I do. I will owe my contractor 10 grand, right? And he hasn't paid me for like a week. But the following week, I owe him 50,000. Because he just completed a renovation and he's not hassling me. So that's how much trust we build with my team, right? When it comes to my cleaners, the same thing, right? My cleaners, even on a personal level, we help each other, right? If you treat people with respect, they treat you back with respect. But also when it comes to putting your foot down and saying, this is what I need things to get done, right? Because people can take advantage or be relaxed. So when I do my business, we can do business at a level. And when it gets personal, it can get personal at a different level. When it comes to work, I don't play. So what I used to do is when they're fixing houses, I'll just fly back and forth. And I still do that, but now it's limited because I don't really have to, because they already know what kind of paint I want, what kind of flooring I want. We already went through everything when we were walking walking the property. So the project, everything, how it's supposed to go. And I get pictures every day. So if I don't get a picture today, I will get a picture tomorrow. They'll tell me, oh, there's nothing much that changed that I can show you. So the next day they will send me a video walkthrough of what they've done. So when I go back, I still want to go back and check what's going on, right? Just to converse and also look at other properties that I'm looking to purchase. That's the main reason that I go. But when they're doing renovations, I go fly back and forward.
So where are your properties?
My properties are in the Midwest. I have Cleveland and I have Chicago area. So 30 minutes, 1 hour from Chicago, the suburbs, those areas.
So I'm assuming you use different contractors from one city to another, right?
You'll be surprised. So the way I found one of my main contractors is through my first property manager. So when I fixed up the house, everything done, the first house, my property manager was kind of stealing from me. Because I know the numbers were not making sense because I'm out of state and I really don't know the business as he does. And he's managing the house. So let's say he uses his contractor to do the work, right? So let's say he said the contractor charged him $5,000 to paint 1-bedroom house or a 2-bedroom house, right? But 2-bedroom unit. He would say, oh, the contractor charged me $8,000. And I'm like, because I've already gone through, take quotes from other contractors and compare, and I give them the square foot, and they're like, there's no way, that's super expensive. I don't know what kind of paint they're doing, for example. So I knew things were not adding up. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to do research, like find another property manager and see if things keep continuing, maybe it's right. So I kept looking. Again, I went Google all the property managers in that area, made a list and called all of them, interviewed them and see. So if there were bigger property managers, I don't want to go with them because I feel like they would not give me priority because I only owned one house at the time. So I looked for a smaller property manager. I called this property manager and I told her, and she was like, oh yeah, sure, I'm taking new clients. What's the address? I gave her the address and she was like, guess what? I managed this property for years with the landlord and gave me the seller's name, the previous owner's name. And I was like, okay, can I ask you a question? And I told her about, the renovation. She was like, there's no way that's much because I use my contractor. And she said the name of the same contractor my current property manager uses.
Wow.
And I was like, can I have his number? She was like, yeah. And then after I told her, because I already had the number. So I called him. He didn't pick. I went and researched him, looked at him Facebook, checked everything, sent him a message and everything. I called him, finally talked to him. And he was like, well, I don't want to get in between you guys' business. I don't know what kind of contract you got going on, but I would never charge that amount, basically. So I was like, oh, okay. I fired him and hired a contractor. When I was doing my second deal, I called him and I was like, how busy are you? He's like, yeah, I can do it in a week or something like that. From then on, we kept going because the work he did actually, let's say I was supposed to pay $5,000 for something, I ended up paying $8,000. It was still quality work. I knew that a contractor is not the problem. His work is quality, is the property management. So I hired another property management and all my other projects, he worked on them.
So that was in Illinois, right? So how did you find a property manager in Cleveland?
So with Cleveland, when I got my first deal is in Illinois. The second deal, I was like, this went well. It was a roller coaster, but finally the property is cash flowing and I'm good. The bank is happy. They're excited. They were like, wow, you really did this. So I was like, I need to find another property because I still don't have a lot of money. So I need to find another property. Where else can I find a property this price range? Because I couldn't find that kind of price over there again, because it was really cheap to have $52,000 for a house. If I didn't know, then you would think, oh, that's cheap, but because it needed a lot of work. So I was like, okay, I went back, did my research, and a lot of podcasts that I listened to, people are, especially investors from California, like, oh, Cleveland is the new best thing. People are buying there, it's cheap. The rental market is strong. So I was like, okay, I reached out to every people that have investors that listed on bigger podcasts that they invest in Cleveland. I will reach out to them and say, hey, I want to invest here. I'm a new investor. What can you tell me about this? What can you tell me basically? So they would tell me, oh, invest here. This is the A area. This is the B area. This is the C area. Basically, all the places they're asking me not to invest in is what I could afford because all the A, B areas were like in the 200s. I'm like, I don't have that kind of money right now. So I saw this duplex that was listed. So the owner is a tire lawyer and she has a construction company. She buys houses from tax sales. She fixes them and sells. So she has these 2 duplexes that are brick. I actually wanted both of them. I made an offer, but I ended up losing one. So it was $68,000. It was already renovated and the tenants just moved in. So I had these. So the day that we closed, I actually got rental income for that month. That was in July. That's few months after the April property. And rent was there, the security deposits were given. So I didn't have to do anything on that house. I was like, wow. But I was already ready because I did my research based on what I've learned. So I made sure everything was checked out. So it kind of made everything smooth to transition to the second property. So I got that for $68,000. The rental was $1,350 at that time. It has increased now. And my mortgage was like 300 and something. So it's less than $400. And I was making $1,350. So I was pocketing about 1,000 plus. And I made sure the tenant paid the utilities. So I wasn't really doing anything. And I kind of managed that property until 2021. I recently just last year got a property manager. So it was easy because the money was coming in to me directly, right? And the tenants were already settled in and it was already fixed up. So that was my second deal. That property now has appraised for like 160 something, 190 something. I forgot. It's a lot of properties now.
So you bought it for 62. How much did you put into 68?
68,000. Yeah, I put 20% down.
You put 20% down, and how much did you put into renovate?
I didn't upgrade it
Oh,
because
it was already renovated. Yes.
Yeah, okay. And the tenants were already in. So I just started cash flowing $1,350 a month.
So did you take any money out of your first property to buy the second one, or did you just save the second?
No, I didn't. I just took the cash flow. So the tenant downstairs, so when I got the triplex, they told me all the tenants were paying. Turned out the tenant upstairs was about to leave. The one in the middle hasn't paid rent for months. And the one downstairs haven't paid for years, like 12 months. So the city, during COVID, the city did what they call it. They give loans to people that qualify or people that are behind rent. So she won the grant. So I owed it because I had to stick with her for all that time. And she wasn't paying. She was actually using the stove to heat up her unit because she hasn't paid utility bills. So they cut it off her name. It was a bunch of things. So when the money came, it went to my property manager's account. So I ended up taking, even though they paid for her, I think they paid like 1 year for her plus back rent. So I was able to take that money and put it on the second property.
So you basically flipped 10,000. So after that, did you continue to use your cash flow to buy other properties?
Yeah, so I used the cash flow from these two properties to keep going. So the second deal that I got, I think I bought it for 15,000 cash, and I put 15 or 16,000 in it, all in less than 30,000, and it appraised for 6 after it was done, and I put it on Section 8 for 1,500.
So it sounds to me like you flipped basically $10,000 into like $1 million in 2 years.
Actually, way more based on my CPA.
Even better. Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned that first property, you learned some very valuable lessons by basically everything that went wrong. Can you share like some of the best lessons that you've learned?
The best lesson that I've learned is management, patience, and real estate is not fast game. It's a slow game, but it surely comes. The money surely comes, and I'm enjoying it now. I can buy whatever property I want at what price. Everything that I've learned from the first deal, it didn't come until my biggest deal when I got the apartment complex. Because the patience, everything I learned about property management, not listening to people, knowing that you've done this before and you can do this. Like I had everyone doubt me from step one, from the bank, even to the contractor. So when I started in 2021, COVID, everybody was talking about short-term rentals, right? I was like, I need to get in this short-term rental game. So I started doing short-term rent in Atlanta, but I was like, how about I buy my own apartment complex where I can afford it and I could do this. So what I did was I was like, I look for a city that has hospitals, right? And I kept looking at houses close by hospital, apartments close by hospitals. And I found this city and it has 2 hospitals and there's a property that's 8 units apartment complex. And the seller was desperate to sell it. They started investing in real estate with his wife. It wasn't going well. He was actually cash flowing like $900 a month on that property. That's how bad it was. And then I think 2017, one of the tenants in the basement lit a cigarette and there was a fire. So there were a lot of violations with the city and he was working through to get that done. So he had to upgrade the furnace. It was the new electrical, new mechanical, everything, fire, staircases in the back, all of that back porch new. So it's like, this is like almost ready for me to work. It's just more of doing cosmetic work. There were other major work that it needed, like the city lifting those violations. So I reached out to the bank and I was like, hey, I saw this property is listed for 145, but I didn't think I can get it for low. I sent it to them. They looked at it. They was like, are you sure? This is a boarded up house. Nobody lived in this house for 2 years, apartment for 2 years. I was like, yep. So when I reached out to the owner, he was like, yeah, I'm selling it for 145. I had a couple of showings. He thought he was going to get an offer for what he listed it for. But when people get in, they look at it, they move out. But what I saw was an opportunity. It's an apartment complex, 8-unit apartment complex. And I already know what travel nurses look for. They want a walking distance to the hospital because when they close from work, they just want to go home. So I was like, opportunity between two major hospitals in the city. This is a no-brainer for me. But I didn't explain to the bank what strategy I was going to do. They already know I'm doing short-term rentals, but they didn't know I was going to do travel. No, they was like, are you going to go to the hospital? I was like, don't worry, I got this. So they were like, actually, after they told me, we thought you were crazy when you came up with this idea. That's what they told me. When I brought the contractor, the same contractor, he's 1 hour away from that city. So I called him and he looked at it. He's like, are you sure? This is a big project. I was like, just give me an estimate. We walked it multiple times and he went in there, did the estimate and gave me an estimate for 85. I made an offer for 120. I ended up going under contract. So at closing, after the appraiser came in, the bank sent an appraiser. It appraised for 200,000. So I already have like 90,000 equity in the house, right? So before I fixed it, the contractor came, gave me an estimate. When the appraiser came out, the bank was like, whoa, this is crazy. This appraised for high. So do you need money to fix it up? I said, yeah. I was like, here it is. The contractor's already giving me an estimate. This is what I want to do. So I was like, okay, since you said short-term rental work in Atlanta, it might work here too. Let's try it. So they gave me the loan, approved the renovation loan as well. I ended up getting the house at 115 because I got a 5,000 back at closing. So that's like almost 100,000, 90,000 plus the 5,000. So what I did, I was like, the bank was like, skeptical. They were like, this needs a lot of work. This is what we can do. We'll give you 3 months without paying mortgage and you could just pay interest. I was like, no brainer. The contractor came. I told him about the deal. I was like, how fast can you get it done? He said, you know what? Since it's a big project and this is one of our biggest between me and you, how about I move in and start working with my guys? So one of the units was actually livable because the fire didn't touch it. So they moved in that unit with his 5-member crew and they started fixing up upstairs. So the upstairs units are the smaller 1-bedroom units and they fix it up. So while they're fixing it up, I'm buying couch, beds, everything and shipping it. And they will put all that hard work in there, put the beds together for me. And when I get there, I'll just go to like Michael's, Target, and buy the rest of the pillows and stuff. And I'll just furnish it. So before I even flew down there, I already had listed it and I have nurses inquiring for the place. So while they're walking their way down, nurses were checking in already. So I was making already like 40,000 before the work was done. And my mortgage was $1,200. And my utility bills and everything is $800. So all in like 2,000 something. And it costs for 22,000, 24,000 a month. Because I rent to travel nurses and they pay me top dollar and doctors. It's literally walking distance to the hospital. Like you can literally work to the hospital.
What's your motivation at this point to continue to have not just one job, but 2 jobs?
I really don't know. I think I just love that it's 2 6 figures. And so how it started, it actually helped me to take riskier decisions, right? I was like, okay, if the cash flow doesn't come in, I can use my own money and put it in there, right? At this point, it doesn't really make sense for me to work, but I still like to keep, the federal benefits and all that stuff.
Got it. So maybe can you share some of the most valuable resources that you have used to help you learn about real estate?
Don't try to implement the will like it's already done. Whatever you're trying to do right now, there are other people that have done it, and you can look for a mentor to help you avoid the mistakes that they've had. I couldn't afford a mentor at that time, so I was just doing everything by myself. But if I had a mentor, you would have seen the red flags on my first property and my other deals, right? So I would say having a mentor would help a lot.
Okay, so I always end the interview with a round of rapid fire questions. Tell me about a book that changed your perspective on life.
The Quran.
What's one life lesson you learned the hard way?
Not having a mentor.
What's one thing about money you wish you could tell your younger self?
That it will come one day. It will come if you work hard.
What's the best investment in yourself you've made so far?
So far, getting a therapist.
Filling the blank in 3 words or less. Money to me is
a tool.
What do you want your legacy to be?
That's a good one. Can I say it in a phrase instead of one word?
Oh yeah, you can use as many words as you want.
I want to build generational wealth to the point that my grandkids, my lineage would say, our grandmother built this. So like they would have one foot ahead instead of starting where I started. They will always have a leg.
Yamundow, it's been really a pleasure having you on the show. Please tell the dreamers where they can find you.
Thank you so much for having me. They can find me at my social media Instagram page. It's a Building Wealth from Rentals. And on TikTok, I'm not very, because I have two jobs. I'm super busy. On TikTok, I try to post here and post over there, but TikToks are the same, Building Wealth from Rentals.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.